In today's video, we're going to look at how you can tell someone that you're not interested in them romantically. This is going to help you to deal with those incredibly awkward conversations where somebody else has expressed their interest in you and you have to say no. And those are never fun conversations, but here's how you can deal with this situation gracefully and hopefully maybe even stay friends if that's what you decide that you want to do. All right, let's dive straight in. So the first piece of advice that I really have to give you is do be clear. Be really, really clear that you're saying no. It's tempting to hedge your bets, talk around the topic, try to avoid using the actual word no, because that feels quite aggressive, quite uncomfortable, quite final. We are quite tempted very often to imply no, but don't say it outright. And the trouble with that is that, first of all, for the person listening, there is absolutely nothing worse than thinking you've been rejected, but not being 100% sure. That's incredibly uncomfortable. Being rejected hurts. Thinking you've been rejected, but not being sure gives you all of the negative feelings about being rejected with added uncertainty, discomfort, and the temptation to try again. That's a big no-no. And from your perspective, actually, if you're not clear, you might end up having to reject them twice, 3 times, even more. It's just not worth it. Really try to be clear and include the word no, however uncomfortable you might be with that. The next thing that you really want to make sure that you're careful about when you're rejecting someone is to not over-explain. Again, it's really tempting from our perspective to give this huge explanation as to, oh, you're a lovely guy. I mean, I would, but it's not the right time. I'm studying. I've got a new job. You can give all the explanations that you like. It's not going to make them feel any better. When we're giving those kinds of detailed explanations and just listing thing after thing after thing to try to justify our decision, what we're actually doing is we're not trying to make it feel better for them. We tell ourselves that we are, but we're not. What we're actually doing is trying to make ourselves feel better. And it's not going to work because we know we've said no and they know we've said no. It is uncomfortable. In general, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation. You have a choice. Your choice is, can it be long, uncomfortable conversation or a short, uncomfortable conversation? I probably tend to have the same outcome, spending less time in a uncomfortable conversation. So avoid over-explaining if you don't need to. And this brings me into our third point, which is that they're going to be hurt. Rejecting someone is going to leave them hurt. Now that brings me on to our next point, which is that you're going to have to learn to be okay with the fact that they're going to feel hurt by this. There's no escaping the fact that they want something that you're not in a position to give them. And saying no to that hurts. It's quite normal for us to feel guilty about the fact that we're rejecting someone and we feel like we're the ones hurting them. That's not technically the case. We're not going out of our way hurting someone when we reject them. We can't force ourselves to be attracted to someone, and we shouldn't even try. So when someone is attracted to us and they express that interest and we say no, and we say that we don't like them, we're not the ones hurting them. Unfortunately, as harsh as it sounds to say, what's hurting them is reality. They're being hurt by the fact that we don't like them that way, not by anything that we've done. Now, that might take a little bit of time to get used to and to sort of sit with that idea. It can feel quite strange and it can feel quite harsh, but it is true. You're not hurting someone when you reject them. Unfortunately, it's just that that's how the world is, and that is painful for them. When you start to tell someone that you're not interested in them, I've said, keep it short and don't over-explain, but you do want to give them at least some information. You do want to usually show that you care a little bit. When you're going to reject someone, although I've said keep it short and don't over explain, you might want to say something more than just no. Just saying no is quite brutal, and that's probably okay if it's a guy in a bar who asks if he can buy you a drink. Even then, I might verge onto at least a no thank you, but you don't owe him anything. If it's a friend or someone you know well, it's worth elaborating at least a little bit. But it's really important that you stick to your I statements in this. Now, if you're not familiar with I statements, I'm sure I'm going to do a video on it soon, but you can look it up online. It's about telling someone how you feel from your perspective. So you're not telling them you're not what I'm looking for. You're saying, I want something different. It's a little bit, it can feel like you're saying the same thing, but the way it comes across to the other person is quite dramatically different. So try to stick to your I statements and telling them how you feel and about your needs. That's really important because they can argue with you about facts, they can try to change your mind, and they might. But if you're saying, this is me, this is my part, this is how I feel, there's no arguing with that. Again, you're just giving them the information that they don't have about how you feel. Now, when you reject someone, you might want to give them a little bit of an explanation, but you absolutely do not have to give them a reason. No is a complete sentence, however hard it may be to just say no. Let's also think a little bit about how he reacts when you say no. As women, it's really important that we think about our safety in this, our emotional safety and our physical safety. You probably know when we reject a guy, sometimes they don't take it so well. You've probably got examples yourself of when you've rejected someone and he's gone from thinking that you're the best thing ever and how desperately he wants to date you, to calling you names, telling you that you're rude, you're ungrateful, criticizing everything about you. That's quite emotionally painful. None of us like that. But it can, if you think about it in a different way, it can be helpful to you. Because if you reject a guy and his immediate reaction is, well, I wouldn't want to date you anyway, you're really, you're ugly, you're fat, and all the other things that they come out with, especially online, that gives you a pretty good idea who he was. And that can remove any doubt in your mind as to whether you made the right decision or not. So if he throws his toys out of the pram and gets unhappy or aggressive or anything like that about the fact that you've rejected him, try to take that as a sign that you did actually make the right decision. Now we're going to move on to some of the things that I suggest you don't do, but again, it's with caveats. So in general, it's best not to ghost. It's best not to just hide away and pretend you didn't get the message, ignore it, not say anything, and, hope he picks up on the hint. That's not polite. It's not kind. But again, if that feels like it's the safest way for you to tell someone that you're not interested, it's not wrong. It's not nice. It's not ideal, but your safety is more important than being nice. Next thing is, and I've done this myself, it's so tempting to wait for the right time. You know they're interested in you. They've made it clear. You know that you're going to have to be the one to bring up the conversation again and give them a firm no. You keep telling yourself, not right now. No, it's awkward now because. Now's not the right time because. There is never a right time to tell someone that you are not interested in them romantically. There is never a time that you can tell them that and they'll go, oh, okay. The right time's never going to come. Don't wait for it. All you're doing is increasing your stress and their stress. This is a little bit of it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm sorry. It's hard, but the right time does not exist. Having said that, it can be helpful to prepare some self-care for yourself. If you know, and particularly if this is someone that you care about, if this is someone that you know well, you care about them, you want them to be happy, you just don't want to date them, then it's going to hurt. You're going to feel it. And so lining up a friend to talk to over coffee, even if it's taking a dog for a walk or going over to see your neighbor and play with their kittens, whatever it might be, whatever counts as self-care for you, consider lining some up if that's something, if you know the conversation is going to be difficult for you. Now, we used to say that you should never talk about anything important over text message, and that's really outdated. Text can actually be a really good way to tell someone that you're not interested in them. When you tell someone face to face, they can feel embarrassed, they can feel humiliated, they can feel awkward. Generally, it's going to feel really bad, and they feel like they're in public. They feel watched. They're likely to find it actually a little bit easier to deal with if they're in the privacy of their own home and they can choose how they respond. You might get a slightly easier time of it as well because they'll have a moment to stop and think before they respond. But there is something respectful about giving them the space and not having them confronted with you right there and then. As I said before, your safety is absolutely the most important part of rejecting someone, especially if you're in a bar or a club. Do think through how you're going to get home safely and whether there's anything that you can do to make yourself feel safer and actually to make yourself safer. I know that it's better to be honest. Honesty is generally the best option, but there are times when it might not be the safest option. It might be the most moral, but it might not be the safest. Sometimes there are things that we have to do to protect our safety that we'd rather not. I have in the past, have to admit, I've invented a husband because I felt that the person who was coming on to me wasn't going to listen to me saying that I didn't want to see them and I didn't want to date them. And I felt, rightly, that they would respond better to knowing that there was another man in the picture. I hate that. I fundamentally hate that. It is a horrible feeling to know that someone will ignore my boundaries but will listen to the boundaries of some hypothetical guy that they've never met but who has a claim on me. I don't like doing it. I shouldn't have to do it. And you shouldn't have to do it either. But there will be times when you will decide that that is by far the safest option for you. And if that's the case, you go for it. If that's what you need to keep yourself safe, do it. It is absolutely fine. Your safety is far, far more important. So that's our video on how to tell someone that you don't like them. What are your thoughts? Is that what you expected? Have you tried any of these techniques? Did they work? Do you have any secret tips that I haven't heard of before or that I haven't tried? I would love to know. So please do let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe. We have some fantastic content coming. We've got loads of videos, all full of the best tips and tricks and ideas to help you have the best kind of relationship, because you deserve to have a happy and healthy relationship. So subscribe now, and that way you won't miss out on any of the content. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed that video, and I will see you soon.